All right. So sorry about the voice. Um, had COVID a few days
Yeah,
ago.
how's COVID, first of
Yeah,
all?
it's not great.
Okay.
Thankfully, I've had the vaccine 3 times, so it's not as bad as I imagine it would have been. Let's go through some stuff. All right. So you can see this. Okay. So this is going to be a bunch of statistics.
Great, great.
Uh, don't really have to worry too much about any of these unless I tell you that you should think about it. I think the main one is that just analyzing his pre-flop game between um, the session one of the day and session two of the day, and
Mhm.
then here on the right is the p-value of that particular difference, and you can calculate the p-value using some statistical tests, which we don't really have to get into.
Okay, what does
Uh,
the P represent, just really quickly?
that means that this is given the data that we have, this is the probability that this is due to some difference in the two rather
The
than
two
just being
strat.
up to chance. Yeah,
Yeah, rather than card distribution. Okay,
rather than
awesome.
card distribution. Um, so here numbers that are really low mean that it's more likely to be uh, due to him playing differently. The numbers that are really high mean that it's basically the same. Um,
Okay.
so the number's close to one, it means that you can pretty much ignore what's going on. But if the
Hmm.
numbers are close to zero, that means that you should pay very close attention to what's happening.
All right.
Um,
Good.
so, because of the statistics that we have, uh, there's not a whole bunch that we can safely say. Um, but there is one thing that we probably can say is that um, the way that he's playing his small blind against three bets uh, probably has changed between session one and session two. Uh, there's not enough data to say that it's changed in the same sort of way across both three bet sizes. But if you combine those together, if you lump that together, then you can
Mhm.
say, okay, there's overall there's a difference between the two. Um, and here we've got a p-value of 0.097, which means that there's um, probably only a 10% chance that this difference in the way he's playing against the three bets is up to chance. So there's like a 90% chance that is, given the data that we've seen, that his strategy has changed between session one and session two, or has
Right.
sort of drifted. Um,
Right.
Also, his fault to five bet frequency is like insanely high, which is going to be sort of consistent with the fact that his orbiting significantly more and just like allocating a bunch of bluffs to the four bet range for no particular reason. There doesn't appear to be any difference between his four bet frequency um, between the sizes that you're using. But there is a difference between session one and session two. So um, as the day goes on, he gets more trigger happy with his four bets.
He four
Uh,
bets more frequently as the day goes on.
yes, that's
Okay.
that's kind of the sense that I'm getting. He's more likely to four bet um, and more likely to four bet using the bluff candidates because I don't think there's any. There's just there's this what this is saying is that like he's not what it's saying is that there's there's like a less than 10% chance um, that this difference is purely because of card distribution between session one and session two.
Mhm.
right? If
Yeah,
if
that,
it,
that
if it
makes a lot of sense.
yeah, it's like maybe there is card distribution, and then like sure that could explain this difference. Like maybe he's playing the same, and it's just we unfortunately see this 10%. That is still a possibility, but the
Mhm.
statistical test tells us that that possibility is around 10%. Um, so what the alternative is that his players potentially changing as you go through the day, and he becomes more click happy with the four bets, which is probably the case, and that's going to be consistent with the fact that his fault to five bet is really high.
Yeah,
Um,
that's insane. That's like
I
a
mean,
crazy.
yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of information about it. You got three out of five hands, 10 out of 12 hands. So,
Mhm.
um, anyway, so you take this information, and of course, I put it into a solver. So, I run a couple sims here. Okay, so this one is using basically these stats that we have in
Mhm.
the Word document, right? These stats that we have, uh, sorry, for session two, um, roughly these stats that we have for session two, and put them into the document. So I put them into the solver, uh, and then we get the output. But also on top of that, I've forced it to overfold against the jam by a certain percentage, and I've listed the percentage here. So here, this in this sim, it's 10%, and in this sim, it's 15%. Um, so this is folding 10% more than the equilibrium would probably fold, and this one is folding 10% more than, 15% more than the equilibrium would fold. Um, and as you can see by the overall EVs, that the solver is really struggling. He's trying to find a reasonable way for the small blind to play in both these
Yeah, at
situations. So like
equilibrium, isn't buttons EV supposed to be like 10 or 11 in big blinds or like more than that, like 13? Like what at equilibrium?
yeah. So in the sims that we ran before without
Mm.
this exploit, it was between 11 and 12. And here with a 10% overfold to five bet, so his folding frequency is whatever equilibrium is plus 10% for that particular spot. Um, then the button's EV drops by 3 or 4 points. And then if it's 15%, it just like disappears completely. So it just
Wow.
literally just loses all that EV.
Jeez. That's sick.
Yeah. So yeah, like this is because of the combination between him over four betting and then having to fold all that to the five bet jam, which is sort of exactly what you do. Um, so we'll uh, take a look at the more extreme one briefly because I think that illustrates the point better. So here we've got an opening 82.5%. So I locked it to this range in order to um, keep it consistent. If I don't lock it to this range, then the opening range tends to drift back and forth because it tries to avoid a situation where it four bets and then gets ripped on. Um, so then you end up with really weird looking opening ranges. So I just locked opening range. Um, and then here, this is the four bet frequency. You notice the four bet frequency is above. Sorry, the three bet frequency. The three bet frequency is above 40% for your point of view. Um,
Oh,
and
is that because I have like plus EV jams with like the low pairs?
yeah, plus EV jams with any hand that you three bet.
Oh, gee.
Um,
Damn.
yeah. So basically, I'm pretty crazy with the three bets, right?
Mhm.
Pretty crazy with the three bets. And like you're basically very rarely calling. Like, this is what the calling range looks like, and everything else is in the three bet range. Um, so for example, you go to this size, and then like he flicks it back because he likes to four bet you, and then you just rip it in. You
Just
just
with
rip it in
everything.
with everything. Yeah. Yeah.
The King 7 off showdown, I think, might be a bit too obvious.
But the thing is, he has to call you in order to see that. Um, yeah, yeah, he has to call you, and he might not do that. Like if this is going to be his overall calling range, um, like he's got ace queen offsuit folding there sometimes. I mean, this is what the solver's come up with. It's the only way the solver can sort of wrap its head around what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Like ace queen makes it into the fold range, then folds to the jam for. Even though it probably doesn't, it's probably not doing that, or maybe he is. Who knows?
What's the calling range looking like to the four bet? Do we call ever or do we just always
No, no,
jam?
there's no calls.
Oh
You just
wow.
always rip it in. Yeah, you just always rip it in. So this is the exploit. Uh, you can construct an overall three bet range that's pretty wide, and then when you get four bet, you rip it in. Um, if and that's assuming 15% overfolding. Um, so what that looks like is um here. This is his folding frequency in this particular spot should be 40%, and I've set it to 55%. Um, and remember, like what he's actually doing is sort of north of 60%. Here, this should be 45%. I've set it to 60%. Um, so that's overfolding against the five bet. So it just means that if he has too many bluffs and he's just folding them, um, you really get to print. So like when and like these exploits seem extreme, but they seem extreme because they are extreme. So you got to really kind of caution it. Here you got 25-ish% three bet frequency, and it's the same sort of idea. Like a bunch of these very merged hands, um, will will three bet, and then when they get four bet into, they just like rip it in. Here with only 10% overfolding, there's a little bit of folds with some of these offsuit hands that made it in there at a very low frequency. Um, Big size, yeah, still so just rip it in. And here they're overfolding by 10%, so I've set it to 50% where this should be 40%, and 55% where it should have been 45% in this particular spot.
All right.
Um, so I can send you those if you want, or you can sort of just you use the same sort of ranges that you were before, except just like rip it in a lot more with like basically any pocket pair, suited connector, suited
Yeah,
ace, suited king.
I've been doing the suited real aces and the pocket pairs. I think the suited connectors and some of the suited gappers I might start adding into the five bet range.
Yeah. I mean, in the second half, like he's being very liberal with his four bets, so I would just like rip it in with basically ace 10 plus any ace that you sort of threw it with.
Mhm.
A lot of the big kings that you threw it with, and then um, like this is the sort of the strat there. Um, None it suited is probably not in there. Aces maybe you can trap a touch. None it suited in the calling range. Um,
I think I probably will keep trapping aces because he has been c betting a lot in four bet pots.
yeah. You can keep trapping aces. Definitely. Yeah, sort of
Do
like
you have
there you go.
sims for the small blind that you've run?
Yeah, so sims for the small blind probably aren't gonna work super well. There's no real difference between the two in terms of its pre-flop strategy,
Mhm.
but its post-flop strategy is way off. So in terms of pre-flop simulations, it's difficult to model that in the solver. Model like very weird post-flop play
Okay.
pre-flop
So,
in the solver.
so something I wanted to mention. I think I may have mentioned it earlier, but I have started pure four betting nines just due to the frequency at which he five bets me and the range construction of that five bet is like a bunch of like lower pairs. So I've just started like pure four betting nines plus. Yeah, that's it.
There you go. Sure. Yeah, that sounds fine. Yeah, I mean, especially if he's five bet jamming a bunch of weird pocket pairs and stuff. Uh, yeah, go for it. In terms of other differences, in terms of his pre-flop, there's on the menu. So I'll send you these two. Um, yeah, I'll send you these two when I think they're done. But they'll just be examples of what you can do, not what you should do.
Yeah,
Um,
that's basically how I'm taking all of this. Is like if he were unable to realize the extent to which you're exploiting him, and like he sees you show down king seven offsuit in a five bet pot and doesn't do anything, like you can just run with this strategy. Like this is the extreme case of exploiting someone who's just brain dead.
yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, so far his strategy seems pretty weak. Uh, okay, so post flop. So from being in the big blind, so he's overfolding a lot in the bet line, especially to bets that are actually less than pot. So like if you go a bunch of like small bets, or bets that are less than a pot size bet, like he'll end up overfolding somewhere. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so not necessarily against the other bets. Like he seems to be like pretty, wouldn't say stationary, but pretty close to equilibrium with those lines. Maybe that's something that he's like really studied for whatever reason. But
I've noticed that he seems especially stationary against overbets, and that he will occasionally call hands that he shouldn't. But that's interesting that you notice that he is not stationary against bets that are pot or less than pot. I wasn't really paying that much attention to that, so that's some interesting information.
yeah, I mean it's pretty difficult. It's pretty difficult to check yourself in terms of that kind of stuff. Um, in c bet flop, c bet turn, he is overfolding, so he definitely
Oh wow,
overfolds to overbets more than 175. So if you go like 2x, 2.5, he will fold a lot. Um, like he's only ever called six times out of the
wow,
28 that you've done it. So what
that's
what
crazy.
what should it be? It should be closer to a third. So a third of 28 is like nine. Um, so six versus nine, like maybe it's just luck of the draw. Uh,
It's possible
but I
that
think I think it's just overfolding things. So it's something that you should think about definitely.
mhm. Yeah, I think it may be possible that what's his flop check raise frequency like? Because that could have something to do with it. If he's not trapping enough, and he's like check raising too thin, then that will deplete his calling range of hands that are going to station the turn.
13.03%. I mean, that includes the three-bet pots as well. Yeah, 13.5%.
Okay, that doesn't seem too crazy. It does seem a bit high, but yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I mean, probably worry too much about that. I think the whole point is like when he's out of position, he really overfolds a lot. Like significantly more than like you should in heads up. Like you can do it in six max because like part of the reason why the big blind is falling preflop is because like you have this pot odds thing, but you don't really have that in heads up. And so like in heads up, the out of position players range is usually tighter than the in position players range in terms of like the bottom of it.
Yeah.
So like you can't really afford to overfold on like in six max. So like this translation between six max to heads up is failing him. Um anyway, uh this line,
Actually,
this check down line. Sorry, what are you saying?
I real quick, when he stations the turnover bet, it seems as though he stations the river like even with hands that should fold. Uh,
This particular line when you go to X pot, he's only called six times, so I can't really make a judgment about the river.
oh yeah, you're
Um,
right. Okay, small sample.
so maybe you're thinking about overbets that are smaller than 175.
Mm. Yeah, I specifically remember. Mm, I feel.
Okay,
All right, yeah, let's move
so
on.
uh, so basically what I'm saying is that for this 175 or bigger, like you should add more bluffs in.
Mm.
If you do choose like a line, but the other hand, like this the check down line is his check down line is really really weak. So you can probably allocate a lot of your bluffs here. So turn pro frequency is very low. So 27.65. So it's quite significant if you have a null of 35. So if you expect it to be 35 and it's 27.65, then it's significantly lower.
Yeah,
Um,
over 405 iterations. That's big.
yeah. So it dips a bit between session one, session two, not significant, no difference in the opening size. So basically, like if it's above 30%, sorry, if it's less than 30%, that means like your weak peripheral hands will get to see the river for free by just checking back the flop. So you just open, he calls, and then you check the flop, and then like he'll check the turn like more than 70% of the time. So you get the option to see the river 70% of the time. And then like you combine that with this decreased bet frequency, like you can probably open any two cards.
Oh
Um,
wow.
open for a raise. So like some of these hands like 7-2 offsuit just open into your big size because then it doesn't block as much of the 2x offsuit hands.
Yeah.
Um, and then he will, after he checks the turn, he'll actually like overfold it a lot. So against the pot size, I think we talked about this against the pot sized turn delayed C bet, he's folding 72%. Against like these small turn delayed C bets, he's folding like 43%. So like you bet a third of the pot or less, and he's folding 43% of the time. Um, so like even though there's not a lot of hands in either of these, like it's still very statistically significant, assuming the prior being close to the equilibrium position. So he's definitely overfolding. But then it gets even. So yeah, this is probably more evidence you can actually open any two cards, and then once you get to the river in this line, so check 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 check, he'll bet 45% of the time. And then, but if he checks the river, he folds
Jesus.
96% of the time against the river bet.
I'm
And like
guessing
this is
that's
not this is not this
statistically
is not a small.
significant.
Yeah, this is not a small sample size. Like this is 50 times. He folds 48 of them. So he's just like auto folding whenever he checks 3 times.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, it's pretty absurd. Like you just open any 2 cards, and then you check down, and then you stab, and then you win like 35% back.
It's crazy.
Um, so this is why I can't really put it into the solver, because the solver will just end up opening like everything for the big size, I think.
Mhm.
which
What do
is
you
which is
think
not probably
about?
not what you want to do too much, because you might like pick up on some of it, but like probably some of those hands that you were folding, just put into your 2.7, and then let's like check it down, and then like pot the river, and you pick up that 35% back from the 50% that you put in. So like
So I
the
have a
the the the, the,
proposition.
the floor the floor is like you lose 15% of the pot. You lose um 15%, 0.15 times 2 times 2.7. So the most you would lose is 0.81. Um, big blinds by opening to the big size. Um, actually, like I should be able to calculate what your EV is. Hang on. So his folding frequency is actually have it here. His folding frequency against your big open, say that's 41%. Call and then raise, calls to say 44%, and he raises the remaining, what does that, 15%. And then when he calls, let's just say when he calls you, you always take this line, and like your hand is napkins, right?
Mhm.
So you lose the 0.81 big blinds. If he folds, you win. Oh no, wait, hang on. This is heads up.
Right.
So yeah, sorry. You think about your question still. So 35%. Um, so you win 1.5 if he folds, and then if he calls, sorry, COVID brain. 0.7 minus 0.5. This is the amount that you risk. And you lose this 65% of the time. Minus 1.43. And then you could win. Sorry. Yeah. So then it's 1.5 times. So I'm not sure am I working out. It's on a piece of paper in front of me. Plus, what am I doing? Yeah. So your EV of opening napkins is half a big blind
Damn.
if you take this line. So suddenly your small blind EV, if you like maximally exploit this and he never changes, your small blind EV should have a floor of 47 BB per 100.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Speaking of maximally exploiting from the small blind, what do you think about increasing the open sizes because we're not getting three bet to say 2.8 and 2.2 and just like
Yeah, sure, I
exact
can
same
run that.
ranges. It's
Um,
like exact same ranges.
Probably wouldn't do the exact same ranges. I could rerun it if you want me to. And then the ranges will change a little bit. They'll probably end up widening and like it'll end up being like an exploit specific to sort of this stuff.
Mhm.
Um, I could definitely do that if you want me to.
Yeah, because it's my understanding that um like if your opponent's not three betting you, you can just put in too much money in the small blind as an exploit. And then you have the pre-flop fold equity, and then you play bigger pots in position and realize your equity, given that you're in position.
Yes, you are correct about that. Um, so let's see what the solver was doing with the original exploit. Pretty sure we had an exploit. It's like the solver should have been doing that automatically, just by adjusting the frequencies of each size. Uh, so this version 5. So this version 5, like you notice how like the first off, like it's not following that many hands. It's like limping significantly less and like it's using the big size more. So like the solver's already doing that by just adjusting which hands go into which size.
I see.
But
I see.
but if you want me to try to, run a new sim with slightly different sizes, we can do that. But the disadvantage of that is that the original data might be slightly off.
Yeah, we wouldn't understand how he would react to the certain sizes and how he would react incorrectly to those sizes.
Yeah, I mean, my gut feeling says that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So like he's still struggling with the sizing scheme that you've got at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't feel like you need to make any big changes, and we should just sort of keep things the same. And so that will give us the advantage of having a better statistical understanding of how he's playing against the size that we started with. And then if we change it, then suddenly we're starting ourselves back from zero again in terms of the statistics. Even though like it feels like it's a slight change, but in reality, it will be different because he should be responding slightly differently to 2.2 and 2.8 compared to 2.1, 2.7. So if you just stick to 2.1, 2.7 for the remainder of the challenge, we'll pick up more data on how he's playing, um, and then continue to make adjustments to that rather than having to sort of restart. So while your thought is correct in terms of you want to increase the sizes, the solver's already doing that for you here.
I see.
If
Yeah,
you if you if you if you want to what we could do instead is add an additional size above 2.7.
that's a good idea. Would you go as high as three, or would you want to keep it at like 2.85?
No, like you would go like 3.1, 3.2 kind of stuff.
Oh, geez, that's massive. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm okay with that.
look, I'll run a sim with I'll run a sim with 3.1, so it'll end up being 2.1, 2.7, 3.1. And then we'll see what the solver comes up with equilibrium, and then I'll plug in some potential exploit ranges that we think that he could be using against the 3.1, and then go from there. I don't want to make it exactly pot because should people open pots or something bigger than pot is probably going to be throw off a bit. So we can give that a look, and you can experiment with it if you want. And the advantage of adding an extra size on top is that it gives you the opportunity to put more money in preflop as the opener without having to adjust your current sizes so that our statistics that we have on him for these current sizes ends up being relatively plain.
Yeah, that makes sense. What I'm worried about is the 3.1 is going to be so big that equilibrium will use it like very, very infrequently.
Yep. So I mean, it doesn't have to use it very infrequently for it to still be a part of the game to give it some advantage. So like if it, say it's using it like 5-10% of the time, like it's still going to be using it. So it'll basically be saying that it's giving some advantage to the small blind. That the point is that we're going to be using it more in exploitative context. So it'll be useful to run the sim with equilibrium so we know like what he should be doing versus what he is doing. So I'm going to run that sim anyway because it's useful to know what he should be doing, and then figure out what he is doing. And then the advantage of 3.1 is that because we've got potentially some previous data on him, like we might be able to see what his previous rebet size is against the 3x open. You might use the same one.
All right, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'll be back in 2 minutes.
All right. So yeah, I mean, I just went through his database, previous hands, and just looked at when you face the 3x open. So out of the 111 hands, he only threw about 18 times. This was against, I imagine, a bunch of fish. So probably going to be
That
three
might
betting
be
significantly
higher than
less.
it is. If he sees me opening 3 to 3 big blinds, that's probably going to decrease lower because I imagine
Yeah,
if
it's
he's
probably going to be less
against
than this.
fish,
Exactly. Yeah. Um, and like his size was somewhere between like 12 and 14, so he might be using like 13 against you. We'll see, but I'll just put 13 in and then consistent. So going from 10 to 11.5 to 13 maybe. And then we'll put in a number like 16ish, maybe 15.5% against as the three bet frequency. And then as the calls, pretty cool. Six out of 111. 1%, which is high. That's against fish.
what is this?
This is the call against the 3x open.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Uh,
50. Okay.
yeah. Yeah, so that means that he's uh folding the remaining 43% of the time. Uh, looks like losing not a lot of hands. 92 offsuit. Sorry, 92 suited. All the aces. Again, some of these hands were a few of these hands were imposition as well, which is a bit weird. Um, because sometimes it'll do that. It'll say that there's only two players left, say playing three max, and then one player leaves, and then suddenly you get dealt into a hand with you being the imposition big blind, and it's still being heads up. So there was a couple of those in there, so throws things off a little bit. But don't worry too much about that. Okay. All right. So yeah. So we can give these a try, but like even without the extra open size, like that might take me a little while to figure out and a little while for you to learn. In the meantime, like a bunch of those hands that you were folding, put them into the 2.7 size and then check them down and then just pot the river when he checks you a third time. Um, and your your EV to open, I think if I calculated correctly, it should be half a big blind.
That's insane.
Yeah.
But like, if it's half a big blind with the trash, it's going to be more than half a big blind with my good hands.
Yeah. It's half a big blind with two napkins.
What am I?
So
Can
so
you
so
check the
you need to be
basis?
sorry,
Like,
say
what
again.
am I winning at like right now without like focusing on these exploits from the small blind?
Yep. 35.35.
Okay.
Like you're redlining him, which is what I would expect to probably continue. Like
Okay.
with if the exploits continue and like this isn't purely explained by luck alone, it's just you've figured him out and he doesn't really change, then like we probably expect this number to be the same, if not increase. Um,
Yeah, because all
but yeah,
the
that would be
exploits
taking.
realize their EV through the red line because it's basically just finding spots where he's overfolding.
Yeah. There's a lot of spots where he's overfolding, so a lot of it will be through the red line, and it should
Okay.
it should be it should be zero in the blue line, or slightly negative in the blue line relative to it. Um, so yeah. Okay, so this is when he's in the small line, you're in the big line.
Okay.
He's got really low turn C bet frequency. So after he bets a flop, he's going to check through the turn a lot of the time. So only C bets the turn 35% of the time. So if we assume that it should be 40%, which or should be more than 40%, um, this is really low. Like though.
Yeah,
So you can exploit this by donking the turn a lot more. And like min donks are actually pretty common at equilibrium, but they're not actually run in solvers very much. Just because like no one really thinks of them. Um, so like I ran some an example here. I mean, this is an example from Six Max, but whatever. Um, this is in GTO Plus as well, so you can probably do it in Pi. But basically, like you should pick a bunch of sims that you have or hands that you played, and then uh, just rerun the turn. So I don't know if in Pi you can separate the turn out
yeah,
and
you can
rerun
run
specifically
sub
the turn.
trees.
Yeah, yeah. And then change the tree. So after you've run the flop, or after if you already have a flop sim, uh, run the subtree on the turn with a bunch of small turn donks. So here I've got like min 15%, 20%, 25%, 30%. And you can see the turn donking frequency on this particular card is 14%, and a bunch of other cards it's going to be um, similarly low, similarly around sort of 10, 15%. So like you can probably increase your overall and donking frequency from your 3.4%, which is probably low to begin with, um,
Yeah,
up to 10%, 15%. And because he's checking back a lot, I probably want to like, from your point of view, like min donk the turn potentially up to 20% of the time, 20, even 25% of the time. Like really, really hammer the fact that he's checking back too much.
I
And
think.
then
Sorry, continue. I had a thought.
basically you just avoid doing that with some of these hands like ace high or weak pocket pairs, um, and just learn how to do it with learn which types of hands you would want to do it with at slightly higher frequencies, and learn which hands which you might want to avoid doing it with. And then once you do that, you'll be able to really exploit the fact that he's checking back uh, the turn too much.
Right, sounds.
Let's try this. Like, for example, what you can do is like you can run because he's probably run a bunch of sims, assuming there's no turn donks, right? And he studied from those, and that causes him to check back um the that causes him to check back the turn a lot. I don't know how long this is going to take. Not
Okay.
that long. So what you can do is you can node lock the out position strategy to always check. That generates an in position strategy, right? um, Against the checking line. So 60 seconds. Very cool. Oh yeah, that's right. I'm still running these other sims. That's probably why it's so slow. Uh, so this generates this, and then you can lock the response to the check, and then unlock the response, unlock the initial open, and then you just have the response to the check locked. Okay, and then rerun it.
I see. So his response to my check is as if I don't have donks, but the fact that I do have donks should change his strategy.
Yeah. So you just lock the in position to play as if there were no donks, and then you constructed a new strategy based on the fact that he's playing as if there's no donks. And then you play the new strategy, which is specifically exploiting a weak strategy, assuming that there's no donks.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and so it ends up leaving checking range sets significantly less
Protected.
less well protected. And like a lot of it is going to be like a bunch of min donks.
Mhm.
Bunch of min donks or near min donks. There you go. 50% donking frequency.
And it's using like bigger sizes as well.
Yeah,
It's mostly using the smaller size.
up to 30%. So yeah, the min and the 15% and 20% being taken a lot, but yeah, there's a lot of donking here, and then you can see that the equity, significant equity changes. So overall equity of the range 54%, and then in these donking sizes, a 59% donking equity versus 50% checking equity. So yeah, I would suggest that you run this this experiment a few times, so that you pick up the theme for all these turn donks, and then you try to incorporate probably a lot of turn donks into your game. Obviously, because it's a new thing for you, you don't have to do it perfectly, but it's going to be a very new thing for him. He's probably never studied it before, and he probably has no idea what he's doing. So
Right.
you'll end up getting a significant advantage in these types of lines against him. And he's
Nice.
probably going to end up falling back on assuming it's a check or something like that. And there's not a check. Like here, you go for the min bet, and he goes for the raise, and he might raise too liberally, or he might end up folding a lot. And this is just splitting the range between bet and check for a 1 big blind difference. And you'll see that like you'll run a bunch of these sims, and if imposition is assuming a checking range of 100% from out of position, assuming there's no donks, and plays like that, then out of position will make this sort of large deviation. So we saw it change from 14% up to 50% donking frequency.
Yeah.
On this particular board. So you should see similar sorts of things where it might be like a 5 or 10% donking frequency, and that suddenly shifts up to 35%. So yeah, I would strongly suggest that you give that a try, and then it'll be a lot of like small donks, and then so essentially, you should be able to pick up some EB there.
What should my like if I was not exploiting him and I was playing an equilibrium strategy, like 3.4% is probably a bit low. What should it be, in your opinion?
This your donking frequency should be closer to 10%, I think.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I think it's probably a spot you haven't studied and he's never studied. So if you study it before he does, and then you start implementing it before he studied it, then you have the advantage on him. So you can continue playing the same for like this week while you're studying it, and then next week when you have a good grasp on it, then you start implementing it. Then you're at a position of you're already ahead. So you don't have to do anything in terms of updating your game currently, but you can study it and then implement it rather than implementing it while you're studying it, which would just probably lead to more mistakes than it needs to be. So yeah, spend some time studying it, and then maybe next week implement it. Because I don't think this statistic is going to change anytime soon. I don't think his strategy is going to change anytime soon. Disadvantage of that is of course you'll be 2,000 hands less before you start implementing it. But the advantage is that you won't be making as many mistakes, and he will be making a lot of mistakes.
Mm. Real quick question. This is a bit unrelated, but like obviously my strategy has been changing quite a bit as time has gone on. Have you noticed any strategic adjustments from Brandon, or is his strategy like fairly fixed up until this point? Because I honestly haven't really felt that he's been shifting his strategy much.
I haven't really seen anything significant statistically. So there's nothing that I can see that shows that he's changed the way that he's playing a lot. Like if anything, he's just sort of playing the same way over and over again, and it's just showing up in the statistics as like this random walk that's getting closer to his long term average. Um, so yeah, I don't think that he's really been doing much. He's definitely not been doing any pre-flop study. Like despite the fact that your pre-flop strategy is way different from anything that he's faced. I don't think he's doing any. I don't really think that he's been doing too much pre-flop work. And in terms of post-flop work, I think that he's just sort of playing it the same way that he always sort of plays in hopes that that's the best. But for someone that's put this much money on himself, I don't think he's been putting like he doesn't play as if he's like he it feels like he's like the way that he's playing is a little bit scared money, um, which is strange because of all the bets that he's been making on himself.
Yeah, it
Uh,
feels as though like he should be like increasing his three bet frequency like significantly just to drive up the variance at this point. Like he's buried. He has to increase the variance somehow. Like I feel like he's been stationing me in a lot of rivers, which is fine if you want to drive up the variance. But I feel like, I mean, just like pre-flop is a pretty easy way to, not lose a ton of EV and potentially drive up the variance just by increasing your three bet frequency. And he has a very low three bet frequency that doesn't seem to be shifting at all.
yeah, yeah. Um, I don't think he's really put too much attention into pre-flop. I don't think he's really changed too much post-flop either. um, like he's just sort of playing things by feel, and maybe he's just continuing to put the spots in GTA Wizard or whatever, or studying the same sims that he's always studied, and hope that they translate to the different sizes um, that you're using, which they don't. They don't. Uh, River Donks. Sorry, did you have any more questions about the turn?
No,
Fancy that turn donking.
I'm gonna get access to this, right? This
Sorry,
sheet.
what? Oh yeah.
All right.
I'll upload all this into the Google Drive.
Great. All right.
um, and the video and stuff as well. So it reminds me I need to upload the other ones. Sorry, it's been a long couple of days.
Imagine.
um, all right. River donks. He seems to be overfolding a lot to these river donks. Like he's folded 80% to like river donks less than a quarter pot. So that's really weird.
Yeah.
That means that maybe he's like too polar on the turn, which is probably the case. But like the trick is that if he's quite polar on the turn and then he doesn't realize that like he needs to continue to turn some of those bluffs into rebluffs when facing a tiny
Bluff
donk.
raises. Yeah.
Yeah. If he's not doing that, then essentially you get to force showdown.
Mhm.
By essentially causing him to fold all those hands that he would have bluffed. And then you just donate, 5% or 10% of the pot to his value when he raises it. And and then he could potentially have like a really weird bluff to value ratio when he does end up raising you. That might be too value heavy. So like that's kind of the whole idea here.
So
Um,
he's folded 8 out of 10 times. What
yeah,
has he ever raised me on the river, or does he just like call?
I mean there's only been 2 times, so
Yeah.
it's not. So I would definitely suggest that you give it a try, like um more frequently. Like if you have one of these like middling hands in there, uh, and some of those and definitely some of those like misdraws type hands. Like when you call this turn bet, just flick in like 5-10% of the pot on the river. Um, in terms of how close it is to equilibrium, it's probably very close to equilibrium. Like these small river donks and stuff are going to be uh, they're going to be um, difficult to map out.
Yeah, I have studied like a little bit of them. They're generally like the value bluff inversion, um, where like you call the turn with like an open ender for board coverage on the straight completers, and then you bet super small into a polarized range that just has like 40-50% garbage. And if you don't know how to play against that, it's just like you just get destroyed by the donks.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like betting this very small into the polarized range just really
But
mess with people.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, I mean, for some reason, GTO Plus doesn't let you bet less than 10% of the pot, which is weird.
I think 10% is probably the smallest I'll be going, just due to the fact that like I'm just not sure I have that much fold equity if I go under 10%. But like 10% is enough to like make him think with like the shitty queen high, the straight draws.
Yeah, so this is one example where like it went bet small on the flop over bet turn, and now you get to the river here,
Mhm.
and like this is with the different sizes, but even here, I like small bet, and like he needs to hero call you with like king high, um, ace high. So like if you think that he's never making these sort of hero calls with king high ace high, in these lines where like his range is very polar, yeah, the small river donk, the 10% river donk is just going to crush him, because it would normally go check check, and then um his ace high ends up realizing his weak high, weak pairs and stuff, and end up realizing, um and then you just basically put in all of your bluffs into that line. Um, and that maybe is not the best example because there isn't any at equilibrium to me.
Yeah, it's generally from my experience just like spots where there's draws that have like the implied odds and then they don't get there. So like maybe Jack 4-5, and then the turn's like a 9, and then the river bricks out at like a 2. So like yeah, some 6-7 and some 10-8 potentially, and then you'll just like construct a value range out of like it's weird thinking that you're constructing a value range, but that's like if the range construction is correct, it should still be like 85% value or 90% value.
Yeah, might not be the best example. Anyway,
I usually only see the small river donks on spots where out of position has missed draws that lose to some of the like the weak give ups. So like on Jack 9 3 3, I think you might not even have 10 8. But like on Jack 9 3 2, you probably have a lot more 10 8. Needs to bluff the river.
97% checking here. 97% checking might be 97% checking might be okay against the polarized size, against the less polarized size. 98% checking as well. Don't turn cards really. And then the smaller sizes have even more river donks.
Okay.
Smaller sizes there, I've got these river donks on like a 6. A low frequency because there was some, mainly because of these like floats and stuff, and then that here. Separate this out.
All right.
There's these sizes in here. Break as well. Yeah, small long bet. They're taking 2% of the time. But yeah, it needs to have some miracles with the king high. Otherwise, you'll end up sort of printing with these sort of floats. This queen 10 up in the float.
You can probably even float as wide as like 10 8 if he's going to overfold to the river donk.
Yeah. So it depends on where is the 10 8.
I did actually run some Pio Sims. I was looking at some Pio Sims the other day and I was exploring this spot. And it was on like Jack it was on like Jack 4 3 or something. It was like 6 5 was an open ender. And the turn was like a 10 and facing a second barrel. 6 5 either raised or folded. Then I sub-treated out and added a 10% river donk, and 6 5 raised less frequently, and I think it stopped folding as well. And so it basically the only way I could profitably call a turn is if you allowed it to have a 10% river donk.
Yeah. I mean, these small river donks probably like he's probably never studied them. Like assume that they don't happen. Uh, but definitely something that you can probably implement if you want to. This is like if you know that he just is going to massively overfold to the river donk, like here, like in this line, Jack 9 3 8 5. What a pot river donk, and use like hero call a bunch of ace highs, king highs.
Mm-hmm.
We separate it out and go 10 15 20 25 30. There you go. 13.1% river donks there for the 10% size. All the made hands.
And then all the bluffs are
Sorry, all the unmade hands end up bluffing the river for this 10% size.
yeah.
So basically anything that you would float with that showdown less than ace high gets turned into a bluff. and you could probably do this throughout this turn, uh, basically on any river. I imagine it'll be similar on most rivers. There's sorry, yeah, cool. I imagine it'll be similar on any river. Like these hands like queen two through to queen six will have a tiny donk size in order to justify their turn call. So anything sort of weaker than ace high, I suggest that, and maybe yeah, in because this is for six max. You run it with some of your heads up stuff. Um, I'm sure you'll find that anything less than ace high after it calls a reasonable bet on the turn can be allocated to a donk line as a bluff for like a 10% donk size on the river.
Yeah, the only thing that I've had difficulty with implementing this, because I have been implementing it, but it's like it's very easy to remember to do it with your bluffs, but then like your value bets, it's like you have to be paying attention to spots where, you know, you would check call the turn with like, you know, a shitty straight draw, and then you have to donk it small in the river. And so you have to remember to donk like your top pairs and whatever at like the middling frequency.
Yeah. I mean, I'd suggest that you just like throw it out there a little bit. Like here we're assuming that he's overfolding, so
Mhm.
if you end up um if you end up forgetting a bit about with your top pairs, it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, but yeah, you can just try to remember. So maybe something that you can put some study into when you get the time. But definitely when you notice yourself with these air balls on the river because of draw floats that have just missed, just chuck in the 10% and then see what happens. And we'll probably be pleasantly surprised that he's massively overfolding. Let's take a look at.
Especially given the fact that his triple barrel frequency is so high in the non-donk line. Like forcing showdown with, you know, like a mid-strength hand is actually like not just good for the bluffs, which get the folds, but even just like if I do get called, it's probably not the end of the world. If he's not raising me enough, that is.
Sorry, say that again.
So given his triple barrel frequency,
Yeah.
it was like in the 70s. After a turn barrel, my
Yeah.
value hands will realize more of their EV. They will realize more EV in the donk line, because that is assuming that he doesn't raise correctly, because they would be made indifferent against a balanced range of bluffs and value if I didn't donk. But if he's not bluffing me enough, if I do donk, then my like value hands, which are just like mid-strength showdown hands, will over-realize by basically not getting bluffed and being made indifferent.
Maybe. The thing is, like, if he's barreling at a very high frequency on turn and river without having the appropriate, checking range to give up, it could just mean that he's bluffing too much on the river.
And then it would just be better to bluff catch in that case, rather than donk and have him fold a hand that would have bluffed and we would have called. My main point, though, was essentially after he barrels the turn, like his turn barrel frequency is too low. We've established that in single raise spots. So he bets the flop, and then he barrels the turn too infrequently. And then if he does barrel the turn, though, he barrels the river like in the 70%, which we talked about last session, I believe, uh, when we figured out that bluff catching the turn is not very profitable because he barrels the river so frequently if he barrels the turn.
Yeah.
So my thought was if we do bluff catch on the turn, and if we check, we're facing a barrel frequency of like 70 some percent. Then if we dunk and he doesn't raise correctly, then we can effectively increase the EV of our hand by like getting to showdown more frequently with our mid-strength hands that would otherwise be made indifferent against a third barrel. And I do think his triple barrel is going to be fairly balanced. So if we can bet 10% pot and now all of a sudden he's significantly under bluffing, I see that as a potential way to gain significant EV.
Yeah, sure. Exactly. Um, yeah, I mean, looking at all the hands that you did it with, that you got to this spot with a weak hand. This is the only one that sort of fits the candidate reasonably well. Maybe the previous one as well. Overbet call with the open ender, you brick out, and like here, for example, you could just bet 10th of the pot. That would probably be profitable.
Yeah.
This particular hand.
Is this everything you have for me? Is there more?
Hang on, sorry, I'm trying to look up more examples. I don't think there is. I mean, there probably is, but I don't have time. Oh yeah, real block bets. So like we saw those checking back turn a pretty low frequency, so a pretty high frequency.
Mhm.
When he bets the flop and then checks back the turn, and then like you go for a block, like he massively overfolds. Like he's folding
Wow.
like 41% when he should be folding like 25%. Um, he tends to be overfolding to most sizes less than pot, but not sort of significant yet. So definitely like these small block bets and sort of these lines where checks back the turn, he will be overfolding. So yeah, definitely after you like call that C bet and then he bets, um,
I
and then
think
then
I
you
think
checks the
the
turn.
I think the trick here is going to be to bluff for a smaller size because I feel as though he's stationing a lot of my river over bets. So like he bets flop, turn checks through, and then I have the opportunity to probe. When I overbet probe, I feel as though I'm getting stationed probably more than equilibrium would. And as you're pointing out here, against the river block bets, he's overfolding. So I think potentially just bluffing river for a smaller size is probably just going to be more profitable than putting in too many river overbet bluffs in the future.
Yeah, exactly. Let me see if this is the same if he checks back the flop as well. So this is check flop, check turn. Sorry. So I think after he checks flop, checks turn, he'll fold to the river check raise a lot. Folds the river bet 36% of the time.
The fold to river check raise might be a function of the fact that usually in this line I use very large sizes. This is only 5.
Potentially 8 out of 10.
Yeah,
Raise. Folds river bet 36.3. Yeah, I mean, if it goes check, 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 you're out of position and you overbet here. Fold 64%, which is not a huge thing if it's 2x pot. Check, 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 check. Pot size bet is basically never folding, so probably avoid potting it into him. I mean, there's 20 hands and he only folded 5 of them when he should have folded 10 to the pot size river bet. So maybe he's stationing a bit there, specifically against like a pot size river bet after it sort of checks down. Less than pot. That's right, not a lot going on. So yeah, I don't think there's going to be too much going on in the check 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 line. He seems to be stationing a fair amount, but like on the other hand, like his in this particular line, like his range should be significantly weaker than yours. So probably what's more interesting is that the opportunity to bet the river. Opportunity to bet the river. He bets around half the time, which is probably correct. And then you would have got to showdown in this check, 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 check line. 67% of the time. $63 hands, check river. He's down $1.50. So yeah, there's going to be a bunch of showdowns there. The 63 showdowns where like it just checks down are probably going to be pretty boring, but they might tell you something about how he's constructing his ranges. One
thing I feel like I should have mentioned to you
Yep.
earlier. He's playing. I think he's likely playing very, very poorly in limped pots.
I don't I think we knew that.
Like he's
Right,
getting.
I think he's think he doesn't really know what he's doing. Like, do you want to look at the limp pots?
Yeah, yeah.
No, this is your limp first ins at -27, which is great because folding is -50, right?
Yeah.
-28.1, so 28.2. And then like if we just want to filter for all this trash, this is all the trash that you might decide to limp, right?
Yeah.
There you go. It's about even. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, maybe it could be improved slightly, but
Mhm. It feels like he's
just be variance too.
yeah, it feels like he gets very sticky on the pots for some reason. It feels like he doesn't understand like bluff catching thresholds in the pots just because like the size of the pot is a lot smaller, right? So like the stack off threshold in the pots is like the nuts, right? Because it's kind of like you're just playing like a 250 big blind deep single raise pot with different ranges, but like the SPR is going to be similar because there's only two big blinds in the middle pre-flop, and he's putting in like a lot of money on the river, um, with hands that should not be putting in a lot of money on the river. I think that's how I feel.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Oh, some of these are limp raised. I he's been killing me with the limp ISO. That said, if it means anything, I feel like I've been running pretty bad in ISO pots.
Yeah, we should filter that out. I mean, in terms of all your hands, that should be included in the EV calculation.
Yeah, yeah, for pre-flop.
Yeah. So this is your overall EV in the limp pots when it goes limp check.
Mm-hmm.
So like when it goes limp check, like overall you end up winning 25 bb 100. And when it was filtered to the good hands, like when it went limp check, you end up winning a big blind. So like on average, those good hands end up just uh winning his big blind that he was forced to put in pre-flop from being in the big blind. And then like your weak hands end up uh back in again. And then like your weak hands in the limp pot end up winning 15 bb per 100, or 20 bb per 100.
Okay, that's pretty good. That's very good.
Better folding.
Yeah, I don't know about this turn check raise. This seems excessive because like you are drawing dead against parts of my range. You should probably like have at least a draw of some sort.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. That seems a bit weird too.
It's a very light call. I ran this one in GTO Wizard.
Oh yeah, I think we talked about that one.
Yeah, the river, the river is
We were talking about
a
raising
range.
when you.
Yeah. We were talking about raising, but in his shoes, it's a range check, and he bet half pot. Oh yeah, we talked about this one too. I should have three bet the river or raised the river. In this one, I ran it. I think he should basically pure fold the river. Was what the solver wanted.
Yeah, what did you do? You bet 3 times a pot.
Yeah, like in a single race pot, this would be a river jam, right?
This will be raised by him. Oh, maybe it makes sense, but I don't know if your ace is any good.
Ace five. That's
I don't know. I don't know if an ace makes sense for anything.
Yeah, I did think his bluff selection was weird here. I think you have enough 10-5 off and king 5 off that block more boats than ace 5. Like I would want like a some sort of counterfeit 2 pair or hand like that. Like this seems very loose on the hand selection. It's pretty loose on the calling hand selection too, I guess.
Yeah,
I think
okay.
the turn call is potentially a bit light.
Plays the turn with a gut shot and ace high. Plays the turn with bottom pair.
Yeah, that was like a 6 big blind river mistake to call.
Yeah, he seems to be having a lot of difficulty with it, isn't he? I got distracted by something. Block bets.
Oh, sorry. If you want to continue on this, that's fine.
No, did you have a question? I was trying to gather my train of thought from before. I think I
Yeah.
feel like I've tried to remember
After
something.
this, after we're done with the limp pots, I'd like to explore his 3-bet frequency when we do get deeper.
Sure. I don't think there's going to be enough hands.
Just look at between like anything above 300 or sorry, anything above 130 bigs effective. I think would be useful to know how he's adjusting to the deeper stacks.
I would you say 130?
Yeah, anything above 130.
Yeah, it's dropped off a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. 13%.
Three preflop success is even higher. So
That's
like
pretty high.
you're folding a lot to a 3-bet, which is probably fine because he's not 3-betting you with anything. 8 out of 69. 4-bet is probably high as well.
Oh yeah, I think you're right about that. And he does increase his size for the 4-bet quite significantly. I think we went over that. It was like he goes up to 29. To exploit that, we talked about min 5 betting. I did implement that last session. And he folded both times. I literally just clicked it back. He went like He went like 27, and I went like 45, I think. So like significantly less than 2x, and he folded both times. So
Yeah, right. It was last session, was it? Why didn't I see those? Um,
it'd be facing four bets or greater, and he's in the small blind. It's probably
yeah, this full preflop statistic doesn't make any sense.
odd.
Yeah, it's one of those ones you don't trust because of it's how it's calculated, kind of weird. Do I not have those hands?
Um,
Just take a look at this. Uh, we'll just say that you five bet. Do you remember which hands it was?
yeah, I had ace king suited. I actually have it up right now. Ace king suited. We were about 125 effective. Ace king of clubs. I think I also did it with kings as well. Yeah, this one. No, not this one. No, not that one. Uh, this one. Yeah, this one.
Oh yeah. I wonder why that didn't show up in the statistic. Anyway, yeah, great. I like it. I like it. But I think just in general, like he's going to be overfolding to any kind of five bet. So,
Mhm.
I mean, definitely throw it in more. What was the other hand?
Yeah, I think I'll probably start min five betting once we get like 120 and deeper. There's likely the point where it becomes uh you know a significant part of adding EV to the strategy.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Hang on, what happened here? Okay, that was fine. Uh, yeah. Anyway, he seems to be folding a lot to the five bet. So like he's called four times and he's folded 13 times. So like it's a fair amount of folding to your five bets. So like he could be over bluffing or it could just like I mean he probably is over
Mhm.
bluffing. Like there's not enough value hands in there.
Yeah,
So there's value hands like pocket nines or whatever ends up being put into the calling range and then um did we ever see
I think he
any pocket
is
nines?
likely over bluffing. just due to the fact that some of the showdowns, I think I saw him four bet me with king four suited, which seems a bit loose on the hand selection. I think that's probably a bit too good to four bet bluff. And also ace jack offsuit was also one, which it's my understanding it's like very low frequency if it does choose to four bet.
Yeah. He's got ace king, king four, queens, ace jack, jack ten offsuit. Tens, ace nine offsuit, jack ten offsuit. Yeah. It's any nines yet. It's any eights yet. I mean, if it's the case that he doesn't have nines, then these are going to work even better.
Yeah, the low pairs realize even more EV.
Yeah, because like the calling range revolves around nines, and like he doesn't have nines, then that means like he's probably folding more than like he's probably massively over folding, given that his uh given that his full bet range is so wide in the second half of the day. He's
You
got
can
so many bluffs in
actually
the second half of the day.
check if he has a lot of nines in his three bet calling range, because if he does, I would doubt that he's RNGing it, and just I would expect him to just be pure calling it to the three bet as opposed to mixing four bets.
This way it's easier. Nines. Yeah, 100%. 3 out of 3. Open and call. But
Yeah, it seems unlikely that he's. It almost feels as though instead of four betting me at a higher frequency by expanding his value range and his bluff range, he's expanded his bluff range to accommodate what perhaps he perceives as a very high three bet frequency, without then also expanding the value range that would go along with that.
yeah, that's exactly what's going on. So that's why these SimC is forbidden with everything.
Nice.
Yeah, even if he's only overfolding by 10%, he's forbidden with everything. Everything you threw it with. These two here, you got a 23%, and this one here is probably going to be less obvious for him, except for the fact that in the second half of the day he always gets jammed on. But then your three bet range is going to be like this, and then you just rip it in, and then like you'll end up ripping in like 9-6 suited, and then maybe he'll call and have ace king offsuit, and then wonder why he got
40%.
outdraw with a 40-60. Yeah. And then have a real deep think about what's really going on in that particular spot. Of course, on the other hand, if he's fighting even more than that, then like yeah, you kind of the ranges kind of go really crazy, like like 6-3 suited kind of stuff.
But I
This
do
is
start
just with an extra 5% folds, like.
So with the extra 5% folds, it does increase the frequency at which I start three betting the lower pocket pairs, right? And then I just 3-5 them, basically pure.
Yeah, like pocket fours up, like all of these suited hands, and then if it's I ran it at a 20% overfold, but then the ranges got really weird.
Yeah.
You basically three bet everything and then five bet everything
Nice.
that you want to continue with. Um, so I'll send those both to you. That'll. I don't think there's anything else that I've done so far. So yeah, just to recap, this four bet frequency gets really weird the second session. So yeah, just keep these exploits until the second session, like these extreme exploits. Keep them to the second session. Just play like close to GTO as you can in session one, and then in session two, you kind of ramp up the exploits. You just ramp up the exploits from the start of session two, like you won't notice
Okay.
until it's too late.
Hmm.
Because the whole idea is like your brain kind of like learns from what's happened recently and the order of things that have happened recently. So like if he thinks that you're playing like GTO beforehand and then suddenly like things have changed, like he's not going to pick up on that until it's too late. And then by the time he's picked up on it, the second session has ended.
Yeah.
Um, so like where we're doing the trick of priming him in the first session to play a certain way, he plays that way in the second session, and then we exploit the way that he's playing in the second session. So by playing in the first session the same way, he like ends up going to some kind of default mode in the second session, which is a little bit off because he thinks that you're over three betting, and he's going to four bet more often, and then you suddenly shift it back on him and start five betting. Um, so like it's from your strategy is going to be same massive shift, massive shift. Just for him, it's probably going to be like changes over time, and he won't really know what's going on. Um, check down line, yeah, you use a check down line a lot. I would probably never fold in the second session. Like in the first session, yeah, okay, that goes to GTO, and then second session, just go absolutely crazy. Just don't have any folds. Open 7-2 offsuit, 3-2 offsuit for the big size. Check it down, and then like pot into him or whatever. Um, uh, try to. I mean, this is like not anywhere near as low hanging fruit as the first ones, so I probably wouldn't worry as much about it.
Yeah.
Um, like here villain
Also,
equals here villain equals small blind means that you're on the big blind, and in the big blind we already have exploits for preflop.
mm,
So you don't have
yeah.
to worry as much about the post flop exploits. So don't worry too much about this until like this turn donking stuff until you're one very comfortable with running this preflop exploit, and two have learnt the turn donks yourself and have run some sims yourself and studied it yourself so that you have an advantage over him.
Hmm.
What will you say?
Oh, when we get deeper, open everything and open bigger because he's not three betting when we get deep.
Yeah, yeah, you should definitely do that. Yeah. Yeah, just put all the hands that you would have folded into your big open size, and then like check it down. Take sort of this check down line when things are deep.
Got it.
All right, I'll upload this video and the previous videos. I'll upload this document. Um, and upload these new sims as well. Is there anything else that you want to cover?
Let me check real quick. No, I think that's it. Do I owe you another $1,000 this week?
Yeah. When was the last payment?
Check when the last payment was. It might have been 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, but you
So
paid
yeah.
4,000, so you owe me 1,000 for last week, and then if you want to prepay this next week, yeah, that was 2 weeks. That was 2 weeks ago. Um, so yeah, 1,000 for last week, and if you want to prepay this week, that'd be good as well.
I'll do that.
All right, I'll put the Bitcoin address into the chat, and you can pay to that. All right. Excellent. Okay. So you guys are playing tomorrow, is that right? Or did you miss? Are you missing
No,
tomorrow?
we're missing tomorrow. We're starting Tuesday, and we're playing until Friday, is my understanding. And then come come April, I think I'm going to take. So the first week of April, I'll play, but after that, I need like a week or two off, like a full like week or two off. So we'll see what sort of volume we can get in before then. I really want to get to the 15,000 hand mark before I take any time off, just so I have like a read about whether I'm going to be playing the full challenge or if he's going to back out. So
I,
it,
I,
it
I
might.
don't I don't think he's gonna back out when you get to 15,000 hands. Who came up with that 15,000 hand rule? Like who posed it?
That was me.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was me.
He's not backing out.
Hmm. Okay. Is that like a personal read you have on him?
Yeah, why would he still be chasing more action on himself? Like the guy was down 20 buy-ins and he wants more action on himself. Like he's not gonna back out.
Oh, he's looking for more action on himself.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah. He messaged me. Yeah, fuck.
He was down 20 buy-ins, down 25 buy-ins, and he still wants action on himself. Like he's not gonna back out.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. All right.
So yeah, keep that in mind. There's a privileged chance that this is going to end at
Uh,
at the
60% mark.
15,000 hand mark. Like if anything, he'll want to he'll propose to double the length of the challenge and offer to play 50,000 hands. And if that's the case, and you're still winning, I would probably accept it. Um, but yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, great. I'll upload all the stuff, and that means probably won't do anything tomorrow, unless like you go over a bunch of the stuff and you have a lot of questions, and then we can have a short thing. But otherwise, yeah, we'll just do a recap from Tuesday evening after the session.
All right. Sounds great. Yeah, this was great.
Excellent. All right. I will see you later. Bye bye.